The year is 2028. The world held its breath as the two great titans of the age, the United States and China, finally came to blows. The war in the Pacific was a conflict of unprecedented scale, a symphony of destruction played with hypersonic missiles, silent cyber onslaughts, and hunter-killer satellites. The conflagration consumed the attention of the globe and, most critically, the full military might of its two primary actors. They were giants locked in a private, world-shaking duel. In Moscow, this distraction was seen as a golden opportunity. With the United States absent from the geopolitical stage, the Russian Federation initiated its own special military operation to secure its western flank and finally bring Europe to heel. Russian troops, alongside their Hungarian and Slovakian allies, massed on the borders of a fractured and leaderless continent, but Europe was not entirely toothless. In London and Paris, intelligence services worked in a state of frantic, sleepless dread. MI6 and the DGSE confirmed the unthinkable. Russia was preparing a limited nuclear strike to decapitate NATO's European leadership. They were faced with a horrifying choice: absorb the first blow and cease to exist, or gamble the fate of the world on a desperate, preemptive strike. They chose to fight. In the silent depths of the North Atlantic and the Arctic, the Royal Navy's Vanguard class and the French Navy's Triomphant class submarines received their final, coded orders. In a perfectly coordinated launch they called Trident's Fury, a volley of British and French submarine-launched ballistic missiles arced into the heavens. Their targets were not cities, but the nerve centers of the Russian nuclear arsenal, hardened silos in Siberia, command bunkers deep in the Urals, and garrisons for mobile launchers. They struck with devastating accuracy, wiping out over 80% of Russia's land-based nuclear capability in 30 minutes. It was a heroic, tragic success. They had saved the world from a full-scale nuclear holocaust, but they had not escaped their own fate. Enraged and wounded, Russia retaliated with the weapons it had left: bomber-launched cruise missiles and the arsenals of its own lurking submarines. The counterstrike was swift. London, Paris, and Berlin, the ancient hearts of Western Europe, were erased in flashes of stolen sun. They had died on their feet, defiant to the last. With Europe's traditional powers gone and Russia's nuclear fangs mostly drawn, the true war began. The massive conventional Russian army surged westwards. They expected to be in Warsaw in a week. The forging of the Iron Aegis in Bucharest, the air was thick with fear and history. The leaders of Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, Greece, Turkey, and the other Balkan states gathered. The Serbian and Croatian presidents, men whose nations had been at war within living memory, shook hands in a grim, silent understanding. The Polish Prime Minister spoke of the ghosts of 1939. Vowing never again, the Turkish president invoked the Montreux Convention, promising the Black Sea would become a prison for the Russian fleet. Before the eyes of a terrified world, the Eastern European coalition, the Iron Aegis, was forged. It was an alliance not of convenience, but of survival. A war on three fronts. The Russian invasion was a three-pronged trident. The northern group aimed for Poland. The central group pushed through Slovakia towards the Carpathian Mountains. The southern group struck towards Bulgaria, aiming to control the Balkans and pressure Turkey. The northern front? The hell of the forests and rivers. The initial Russian assault slammed into the ancient Białowieża forest, a natural barrier on the Polish-Belarusian border. Here the elite Polish Grom special forces clashed with Russian Spetsnaz in a shadowy war of ambush and sabotage. The dense woods channeled the Russian armor into predictable paths, where Polish infantry armed with javelin missiles and Warmate loitering munitions turned the forest into a graveyard of tanks. After weeks of brutal fighting, the Russians broke through into the open plains, only to be met by the full force of the Polish army. The battle for the Vistula line was a monstrous clash of steel. Polish Leopard 2A7 and K2 Black Panther tanks, using superior fire control, outranged the Russian T-90s, creating lethal kill sacks on the flat terrain. When the Russians attempted an audacious amphibious assault across the river near Warsaw, Polish artillery batteries, fed real-time data by drones, unleashed a storm of shells that turned the water red. The Vistula line held, but the cost was staggering. The Central Front. The Carpathian Fortress, the central group, supported by Hungarian armor, expected to punch through the Carpathian passes. They were met by the Romanian Vânători de Munte, mountain hunters. In the Bikaz Gorge, a narrow winding canyon, the Romanians used the terrain to perfection. They triggered controlled avalanches, burying entire Russian supply convoys. Their F-16s, flying daring nap-of-the-earth sorties, would appear over a ridge, unleash their munitions on a stalled column, and vanish before Russian air defenses could lock on. The fighting was desperate. At the Prislop Pass, a key route was nearly lost after a relentless 3-day assault. In a moment of sheer audacity, the Romanian command committed its armored reserve in a nighttime counterattack during a blizzard. The Russian forces, blinded by the snow and unprepared for an armored push in such conditions, were routed. The Carpathians became an impassable wall of rock and Romanian courage. The southern front, the Balkan stand to the south, the Russian army pushed towards Bulgaria, hoping for an easy victory. Instead, they ran into the Bulgarian army, dug into the historic Shipka Pass, a place where Bulgarians had famously held off a massive Ottoman army in the 19th century. History repeated itself. Outnumbered but possessing the high ground, the Bulgarian infantry used anti-tank guided missiles and massed mortar fire to halt the Russian advance in the treacherous mountain roads. Meanwhile, the Iron Aegis showed its true strength. The Serbian army, renowned for its hardened soldiers and powerful artillery, did not wait to be attacked. They launched a powerful counteroffensive into the flank of the Hungarian forces, supporting the Russian invasion, disrupting their logistics and forcing the Russians to divert precious resources from their main pushes. Further south, the Hellenic Air Force of Greece, operating its extensive network of Patriot and S-300 air defense systems, created a formidable no-fly zone over the southern Balkans and Aegean Sea. This Greek phalanx protected the coalition's southern flank, preventing Russian long-range bombers from striking their ports and command centers. At sea, the Turkish Navy had closed the Bosphorus, bottling up the Russian Black Sea Fleet. In a series of daring operations, Turkish Akinci drones provided targeting data for Romanian and Bulgarian coastal missile batteries. The Russian fleet, unable to flee or be resupplied, was systematically dismantled in what became known as the Black Sea Cauldron. The breaking point months into the war, the coalition was bleeding. Ammunition was low, and the sheer mass of the Russian army was beginning to tell. A Russian breakthrough near Krakow seemed imminent. In the Polish command bunker, there was a moment of profound suspense. A top general advised a tactical retreat to save the army. The Polish president looked at the map, at the names of cities that had been destroyed and rebuilt over centuries of war, and refused. "We hold here or we cease to be," he broadcasted to the nation. "Poland's soul lives on the Vistula." The statement was not just rhetoric. Coalition intelligence had identified a single, critical vulnerability: a massive Russian logistics and command hub near Brest, Belarus, supplying the entire northern front. They pooled their resources for one desperate gamble. Under the cover of a massive jamming effort, Polish WR-40 Langusta and K239 Chunmu rocket artillery systems unleashed a saturation barrage of long-range guided rockets. Simultaneously, a squadron of Romanian F-16s flying a perilous low-level route fired scalp-hunting cruise missiles. The attack was perfect. The Brest hub, a sprawling complex of fuel depots, ammunition dumps, and command posts, was annihilated in a series of earth-shattering explosions. The effect on the front was immediate and catastrophic. Within 48 hours, Russian tanks on the Vistula line were running out of fuel. Artillery fell silent for lack of shells. The Russian offensive didn't just stop, it collapsed. The Polish army launched a furious counterattack, and the Russian northern front disintegrated into a rout. Witnessing the collapse in the north, Romanian and Serbian forces launched their own offensive, shattering the beleaguered central and southern groups. The long, bloody retreat had begun. The war was over. Russia was defeated. The world watched in awe. Victory had not come from Washington or the now silent capitals of Western Europe. It had come from the east. It was won by the Poles on the plains, the Romanians in the mountains, the Bulgarians in the passes, the Greeks guarding the skies, the Serbs on the attack, and the Turks holding the sea. Their historical legacy of resistance against Mongols, Ottomans, Nazis, and Soviets had been vindicated on the grandest stage. They had saved themselves, and in doing so had saved Europe. The Iron Aegis had held.